Again, it's not the end of the world for NT4's 36. They should be more than comfortable in that winner's bracket, but they will be low on the POI draft because they were in 15th when eliminated. And there's a good chance that the likes of ExoClan and maybe even T-Law could overtake them. But Dreamfire, well...
This Deathwatch still trying to get to zone, by the way.
For Dreamfire, it's about increasing their chances in the elimination bracket with a better draft as well. Now, back to Launchpad. Launch site. Launchpad? What am I even saying?
It's late. It's late once again. We've been given the risky shift. C9 are just waiting, by the way, for any opportunity to move into this building and third party. They're playing underneath at the moment. Stallions still on blues, by the way. This standoff just commences. This is where, another thing just to highlight here, this is a long day of action. It's been 2 long days of action, right? And Stallions and Envy, the focus in these kind of situations is so much tougher than kind of working your way in from edge and just trying to fight, right? Because you cannot afford to be the team that makes a mistake. You cannot afford to be the player that just pops a head up and looks away for a second and gives an opportunity to be knocked, because if you do, it's over. It's as simple as that. You're down to that elimination bracket and the road ahead is so much tougher.
Both of them just hoping that they see in the kill feed that Liquid Alienware get eliminated, but they haven't thus far. Of course, it's easier to track in the early game, but when you start to get amidst all the commotion as the zone shifts even further east, and for all the comfort that Envy and Stallions found themselves in previously, it is going to be whisked away from them. Go next, Shopify Rebellion find themselves in some of the better positions now.
Crazy Raccoon going to get the Mythic bin on the south side as well, so you do not really want to be on the south side of this zone, knowing that CR are going to be up to, you would imagine, full red Evos, and they're going to have some pretty stacked weapons to play with as well. But just looking at TSM's position, you can see Shopify commanding a lot of space at the moment down on the southern side of the zone. TSM have a chance to wrap behind and take a little bit of space around those Prowlers. Maybe you are going to see a Prowler have an influence on an endgame. Maybe I've foreshadowed something.
That would be insane. It's Envy versus T-Law in the final circle, and a Prowler gets the final
roundhouses someone.
Speaking of Envy, still just posturing up at the moment, but they will have to eventually move out of here, and they may not know it just yet.
Really tense moments. We cannot state how levels of concentration are tested in these situations. TSM have made that wrap that I was mentioning from their position. They are now on the east side of the next zone, so TSM play this one really, really smartly. But this building is essentially the game, right? This is the brackets for all these teams.
And it's going to be mayhem when they all have to move. Furious start to dive into the sky. Dreamfire trying to take them out of the sky. Where did Fury go? Remember, Fury did very well in the previous game to slam themselves in the middle of it. They're actually going to go on the western side of Launchpad here, so it's not going to be ideal, but it certainly works for now. But they will join the rest of those squads that have to move from west to east. It is going to be difficult, but at least they do have this high ground to work with, which, again, they could dive off if they needed to.
Yeah, they could just rip a skyward dive off the end of this towards the closing moments of the circle. If they can get it off, it will be a fantastic rotate for them to make, but not easy to do for sure. As Envy now, this is their chance at kind of deciding their own fate, essentially. A tagline for this event I've seen a lot, and understandably so, is fate is calling. Well, it certainly is for these two teams.
Zone continues to move towards Shopify Rebellion. But this next zone moving in is going to determine who gets to the winner's bracket for me. Because not only have you got Stallions and Envy within that building and Launchpad, but west of them is Liquid Alienware. Our 3 major teams to be watching right now are all going to have to move together, but in different ways. You could argue Liquid Alienware might have an easier rotation because they're not next to all of that traffic.
The only problem for them is next to them is Alliance, and on the other side of them, Crazy Raccoon, who we know have hit a Mythic bin. So, pretty tough to do, but they do have the Trident, remember, Liquid Alienware, so they can throw a bubble on that thing and kind of just skip ahead of everyone if they need to.
It's just a matter of playing the survival game. It is a battle royale at the end of the day. And sometimes if you can just duck your head down and avoid all the commotion, you will be rewarded. But Liquid Alienware are not doing that. They are very much actually doing damage to teams to keep them away from them. 6th place at the moment in the series, but 20th position in the overall standings.
This way, mates.
Timing of that was impeccable.
You only got to imagine what's going through the heads of Team Liquid Alienware at this point, right? It's just don't make mistakes. Don't make the mistake. If we make a play, we all commit to it, and that's probably the same story here for Stallions as well. They're going to try and play for this bottom floor, I think.
Build a base.
Bubble goes down. Alb is going to try and get the walls up to give him and his teammates a chance to make sure they're healthy, to get healthy, and the Newcastle castle wall will go down as well. It's a, like you say, build a base situation, but they found somewhere safe. There's a Sheila in the distance which is trying to take some of those walls down, but the corner looks pretty good, honestly.
Envy are getting kills in the kill feed as well. Crazy Raccoon will be eliminated, so Envy, they had to move a very different path, but will find their way into that southern side and will be safe for now. 15 squads now remain. Remember, that's an extra placement point for all these teams searching for it. But all the teams are still alive that are searching for said points. Stallions go back to their hidey hole, but their wall is starting to be deleted.
Liquid Alienware, big moment for everybody in this situation. If Liquid Alienware go down, it opens the door for everybody else to try and steal this 20th position away, but they are picking up kills, and one of them is onto Keon. The finish comes in. That's a point on the board for them.
And maybe Envy find themselves in one of the better positions now as FaZe Clan eliminated. They'll be in the elimination bracket. Has not been a good couple of days for them. Kill feed starting to light up. 100 Thieves have just lost one. 13 squads now remain as 100 Thieves do go down, but Stallions are
he gets the stick! He gets the stick! And they want to follow up on it, but Alp sent it! He's completely committed to this fight! He's gone down! Crook! 1v1, but can't do it! Stallions will be eliminated, and there's Alliance who are there to pick up those pieces. And for Envy now, they have a chance. They could be the ones to ruin the day for Team Liquid Alienware.
Stallions into the elimination bracket. All focus, all eyes on Envy. But T-Law are still alive inside that building. And Envy, they are still 11 points off of Liquid Alienware as well. You start to think that it is going to have to really be a win here for Envy if they're going to find themselves in that winner's bracket. Furia go down in 11th. Big nade to get an initial knock.
Now, this didn't go too well last game for Envy. This exact mirror play, bubble on the Trident towards the end game. But this time, can they find safety? Can they find somewhere to play? And if they can, that win you were talking about might happen. But as you say, the very definition of a mirror, it's another Trident with another bubble on top of it, and now Envy are finding the same situation that they had in the last game.
It's TSM, and it might just be the end here for Envy. A last desperate attempt from Drop to maybe try and escape here as the Gibraltar just moving it.
He jumps a bubble!
And it's now going to drive away again. Maybe it's a last hope for Envy, but it's going to be so difficult from here.
I mean, Dropped, if you win it from here, it's an absolutely monumental history-defining play that we will remember for quite some time. He's got the entirety of Cloud9 in front of him as well. Envy will be eliminated, and now Team Liquid Alienware, with that happening, will have secured that 20th place spot. They will be going to the winner's bracket, and they are trying to do it in style.
Oh, they are still alive, they are still fighting, and they are not going to go down without a fight here. Dreamfire eliminated in 6th position. Liquid Alienware into the top 5, and now Liquid Alienware push themselves even further into the top 20. So even if someone did make enough points, it wouldn't matter. They go down, but they'll be in the winner's bracket as Cloud9 gets some kills.
Alliance have been eliminated, but note that Alliance have taken first place in the overall standings now, away from Fnatic. So a huge couple of days. It's finished in the perfect way here for Alliance, but it's Cloud9 who have the most space in this zone. TSM and Shopify Rebellion is your last 3 teams.
So TSM can find a few more placements if they were to find a victory here, and they would push themselves into the top 10 for that POI draft. The same could be said for Cloud9 to get even further into it. But Alliance, what a story it's been for the EMEA Giants. they will get the #1 pick. But Shopify Rebellion, they're also trying to push themselves even further. They're currently on 150 points. They're closing in on Fnatic for second.
z-o-o-m, no scope, no problem. Mentioned this man is icy in those big moments when it really does matter. Shopify Rebellion, though, are going to have to get MT back to his feet. Should be pretty comfortable to do so. Here come the Gibby ults. And Shopify Rebellion have already expelled their bubble. The platform that Shopify Rebellion have to play here could be the difference maker. They have the height advantage, they have the angles over everybody else.
TSM shouldn't really win from this position, but boy, are they trying to give it their best bet and best go at it here. Shopify Rebellion in a very commanding one, but what can change a final circle? A Dark Veil.
More Gibby ults. More carnage coming down and raining down from the skies. Shopify Rebellion, a little bit hazardous and a little bit kind of trepidatious in the way that they're kind of tiptoeing over the top of TSM. As the Gibby bubbles once again comes down and round 3 of the Gibby ults takes place.
Bubbles everywhere, vital. POI draft positions on the line for all 3 of these teams as now they're starting to get a little bit closer. Good chunks though from MT.
Cloud9 eliminated, it's TSM versus Shopify Rebellion. z-o-o-m will go down, but Koifel's found 2. It's a 1v1 if I'm not mistaken, to see who wins the final game of the day. And Shopify Rebellion will be that team. They close out here on Storm Point with a win. And it's that young man Koifel again who is showing that experience that's starting to be picked up.
And Shopify Rebellion, they make a statement to everyone else in this tournament to say, do not forget about us. They tie Fnatic on 160 points, joint second and third, and they really are a major threat at this tournament. It's unbelievable the consistency we're seeing from Koifel and z-o-o-m as a 2, and then you add MT, who, you've mentioned it a few times, one of the best IGLs to not find a victory so far. But could this be the tournament where that changes, as they just had a look at the overall standings and saw that they are tied with Fnatic in second?
Don't forget about my guy Dom behind him as well. One of the funniest people in the Apex Legends Global Series, always bringing the vibes, always bringing the laughs, and always keeping his team in good spirits. But Shopify Rebellion, the perfect end to the day for them, but a lot changed in that final game down when it comes to the standings. These are the match 6 results. We just saw Shopify Rebellion, who were in that pretty much spot for the entirety of the game. Not only do they get the win, they get the 7 KP to go alongside it.
Just to confirm as well, Shopify Rebellion, yes, they were tied, but the tiebreaker goes to Fnatic. They will be the team that finishes in second place because they had a better match score than Shopify Rebellion, but it was, boy, was that close.
I thought you were going to say they had to travel less distance to get here. Is that
home advantage for Fnatic?
Not true, by the way, not true.
Well, it was close but no cigar for a couple of these teams chasing that top 20 as well. In the end, I mean, it's going to look like a big points difference from 20th to 21st, but Envy and Stallions, they gave it their best go, but sadly for them, Liquid Alienware found their consistency at just the right time. In those last 3 games, they did what they needed to do, they played it safe, they let the game come to them, and then when they needed to execute, they did.
Really, really impressive stuff. We saw Stallions and Envy trying desperately to force their way into that top 20. Wasn't meant to be, but the series of results in front of us, it's Shopify Rebellion who will win this one. 64 points on the board, a pretty considerable gap over 100 Thieves in second place as well. At the other end of the table, you can see NRG struggling a little bit there, Faceland struggling a little bit, Ninjas struggling a little bit, and you know, Envy's been somewhat of the surprise for me so far, falling down to that elimination bracket. I mean, I was saying potential dark horse, and just a reminder to myself, not only, but everyone who's watching the tournament, certainly isn't over for them right now, but you would have expected, and I'm sure they would have expected, to be in that winner's bracket.
Well, they will get the first pick at the POI draft at the elimination bracket, so that's something they can have, being in 21st position in the overalls. But sadly for them, they will just have to watch on when the winner's bracket is competing. And there is the confirmation that you were looking for. Those are the 20 teams that will be going into the winner's bracket, and those teams that will be drafting for those spots on all of those maps. But it will be Alliance who picked first, Fnatic second, Shopify third.
and 5 of the top 10 teams from the EMEA region as well, which is incredibly impressive. Probably the best LAN showing, I would say, that we've seen from EMEA in quite some time, and Alliance really kind of the jewel, so to speak, when it comes to EMEA, and they're at the top of the leaderboards, 2 points ahead of Fnatic after their series have all been played. But I think the standouts in that top 10, there's some familiar names, understandably, with Shopify Rebellion, Team Falcons, for example. But you're looking at the likes of Go Next Esports and Noctum. What a performance it has been in the group stage from those 6 gentlemen. Really, really impressive stuff.
But how will they fare when these lobbies get to the business end of the tournament, right? When the very best start to compete and you get to the really dangerous, terrifying lobbies. Some say that that winner's bracket at times can be one of the most terrifying lobbies that we see in Apex Legends. Now, these are the teams that will be in the elimination bracket when they move forward. As I mentioned, Envy finished 21st, so they will get first pick in the POI draft. But then sadly, there's some teams who really struggled so far in the group stages. Some names down there that maybe we didn't expect. LG, for example. Ninjas couldn't really get going. NRG never had that opportunity to show what they're made of as well. But of course, it is not over. The elimination bracket is chance number 2 to try and push yourselves that little bit further to get closer to the grand final.
Yeah, certainly not done at all for those 20 teams that you just mentioned there. A lot of Apex Legends still to play. That man I mentioned, he always brings the vibes. He's always got a smile on his face.
Don't break the camera.
Careful, that's an expensive piece of equipment that... Mate, actually, they've won a few tournaments. I'm sure he'll be able to replace it. He'll be all right. We'll just speak to the boys and be like, guys, you need to chip in.
I thought he had a Sheila turret at first, but I realized he was just celebrating with some fist pumps. But yeah, what a moment that is for Shopify Rebellion. Sadly, they don't win the tiebreaker to get the second pick, but it means they go into the winner's bracket on a high as well, with momentum behind them, and again, just striking fear into the eyes of everyone else.
The speed at which Don's going from point A to point B, by the way. I swear he was walking out of the stage a second ago, and now he's back there, he's taking a picture. Oh, the man can move. Amazing stuff. Shout out to the crowd as well, who have been here for the long day of the ALGS Championships in Sapporo. Really have been a big integral part of the atmosphere that's been here. And I tell you what, if you thought the first 2 days were good, day 3, day 4, day 5, boy, it's going to get rowdy in here, I've got the feeling.
Sold out Sunday, I've heard as well, so it is going to be electric here in Sapporo, and I cannot wait for it.
It's going to be absolutely amazing. Dan, what's your takeaway from today? What do you think the biggest statement is?
I think the fact that teams who maybe looked like they were down and out yesterday have still shown their class here today. There was a few that are the big heavy hitters. I'll say Falcons because they did have a poor day 1, but there are some of the teams that when their backs are against the wall, they always are able to persevere, and I think that just shows the talent that we have in this Apex Legends lobbies that we've been seeing. So I'm expecting more of the same as we push into further days.
Yeah, for me?
What for you?
EMEA. It's been a good day for us. 5 of the top 10 teams. Just to remind you, just say it one more time before I throw it over to the desk. 5 of the top 10 teams. That's right, half the teams in the top 10 are from EMEA. Rain Day, what do you think of that one?
Did that hit you? I tried. They're right there. I almost got it over there. I love it, Mark.
He's been waiting 5 years to say
Thanks for
that,
bringing the
right?
energy. It was great to hear the broadcast, and obviously those guys are having fun. It is late. I mean, we're getting to that point in the day where, you know, we've been here early in the morning. Whole staff has, the crowd has as well. Still got plenty to do, so sit back and relax and trust that no matter where you are, still a little bit more Apex Legends chat to come. We got to close this out. We got a POI draft coming up now that we've got our elimination bracket 1 and our winners round 1 ready to go as well. Snipe Down and Dia joining us on the desk. And Snipe, obviously ready to go. Still a lot of work to do for these teams. They kind of got to switch gears really quickly and then start prioritizing where they're going to go, whether they ended up in elimination or whether they're winners.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the 3rd map addition with E-District, I think a lot of these teams are going to be prioritizing that pick just to be as safe as possible. Assuming a lot of these teams made that a priority, just due to the comfort of playing World's Edge nonstop, it's very easy to know the rotations on that map. Storm Point's been around for a while, so I'm expecting a lot of prio picks there.
I think just for the sake of content, hesitantly disagree. It's been interesting to watch E-District evolve over the course of this tournament. I don't know if we're at the point yet where most teams are going to be prioritizing E-District, although I have seen a fair few of them, especially those teams that tend to perform better on E-District, already prioritizing that before the tournament. So I do expect they'll continue.
It's going to be interesting to see the strategies that are employed coming up in just a little bit. But for those who are a little curious on why it's important, let's go back to the standings here, because that will end up determining where they end their picks or where their picks come from in terms of the placement that they finished here. So Alliance, they'll be going first. They'll also end up going, once all 20 teams have gone, 21st again, and they'll keep picking first, kind of like in a schoolyard pick. You go first, you wait until somebody else goes, and then finally you get that next round once you start going over. The thing is, when you go into that elimination bracket too, you do start to have somebody else with another advantage of trying to get out of it. Those are our bottom 20 teams. Envy is going to have the privilege of picking first in that elimination bracket round 1, which means that effort today, almost qualifying for winners, hopefully it does, Dia, secure them a little bit of, I don't know, comfort heading into what is obviously an uncomfortable situation, being threatened with being eliminated.
I mean, and Envy were clearly putting forth a lot of effort to get out of this situation, but if you're going to be in the lower bracket, I think they and Stallions have to be very happy with where they are, simply because they have one of the best chances of getting out of it. They're going to be able to draft with a much larger advantage, and I'm expecting that if you are Envy and Stallions and you are solving your game plan as the tournament goes on, that should actually matter quite a bit coming into tomorrow's games. So if you're able to pick good POIs, as I expect that you are, given that you almost made it into winners, you should be able to make something big happen with that tomorrow.
Plenty of time for POIs. We're going to talk about that in a second. But today's performance had to obviously have a few stars show out brightly. And that is where we see our in-zone kill leaderboards, thanks to Sony. On the far hand side to your left, you're actually seeing the overall kills. And Koifel, man, he was the star for today. Verhol, Sangjun, Effects, keeping track of their performances across it all. Major moments, and obviously continuing to see how the weapons impacted. But Koifel, he was your man of the day. He was the main leader with 36 of those 46 kills in total coming today sniped out.
That is incredibly impressive. I mean, we saw this team just has the potential to absolutely pop off, and I think they're doing it at the right time. They picked the last game of group stages when they knew they were already qualified to build momentum and carry that into the winners bracket. They have a whole day tomorrow to rest, watch the matches, come back out, and hopefully they can use that fire. You saw Koifel, he was all smiles. He knew that he was the kill leader of the day. I mean, he was 13 kills ahead of the next closest. I mean, right now, it's pretty clear who is the MVP of this tournament.
Shopify Rebellion, they have found their rhythm. Can they keep it up? Well, you have to wait a whole day to see them play yet again. But Koifel, I think 36 kills, so you average that out over 4 days. I mean, that's plenty of kills to get you through the interim. Congratulations to him and all those other players. We'll see how that Sony in-zone kill leaderboard adjust as we head into not only eliminations, but our winners round coming up. Now, as we kind of look towards the other aspects of the day, Dia, we've always got good moments, some exciting moments. Do you have a favorite moment that you saw today?
So, funnily enough, the small shot that we had there of the Mastiff and the amount of kills that it's accrued did remind me of the one that made me laugh the most. I was telling you about it backstage, but it was in the thermal end game, and watching Supernova, who did have a lot of work to do, try and snipe out people from the center of thermal was very fun, but we did have a team Valculting by them and being shot at with a Mastiff, and it really exemplified to me how multi-purpose the shotguns, and specifically the Mastiff, has become throughout the course of this tournament. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to shooting with a Mastiff and a Valcult. That takes the cake.
I mean, have you really played Apex at a high level if you haven't tried at least to shoot a Mastiff across the map? We all know we're looking for it, but at the end of the day, there are a few plays that always stick out to us, and we leave those for our special segment, our Alienware Aces. Let's get it started because, yeah, we got 4 that stand out a little bit more today, thanks to Alienware. We're going to highlight them right now. The first one, Impulse, or No Pulse, or at least he's pretending not to have one, playing a little hide and seek as Mirage. Obviously, Aurora, what a phenomenal day for them. Got themselves into winners, no problem. Look at 9 Impulse there on that Mirage. Just don't notice me, don't notice me.
I love this character right now.
Did a pretty good job.
Fits the Mirage persona pretty
Oh,
well.
wow, and then that was maybe the... So which one was the highlight,
Yeah,
guys?
right?
I don't know. Also, TSM find themselves in the mix. Kind of got back to life after that last game, but Verhol shows off the power of Sheila. And you can see it right there, Verhol's last thing he needs, or the enemy teams need is him with a minigun shooting that many bullets that effectively. TSM, they will find themselves in winners as well. Back to the team that kind of we've been naming the hometown heroes. Yuka F continuing to dominate with the Kraber. It sets up this play from Leica to slam that Newcastle wall and claim the final victory in series number 2. You can just see it right there. Man, popping off. And of course, Noctum. They prove experience isn't everything. This team not only was able to win Series 1 of the day, they were able to win Series 2 of the day. 2 series in a row. I mean, these are things we reserve usually for Falcons, for Alliance, for these names that feel like they are always in contention for a championship. This time, it was Noctum. Those have been your Alienware aces plays of the day. Congratulations to them. All right, let's leave it with you two to close out our desk before we jump into our POI draft. Snipe, I'll start with you. Final thoughts on today. Tomorrow, we head into a much lighter day. We've got elimination bracket round 1. We'll see 10 teams continue, but we'll also see 10 teams go home.
Yeah, I think one of the wildest things is that each tournament, it seems like one team stands out from the rest, where it's like, you know, you had Alliance with all their points, and then it was GG at the last event standing out, and now we have Noctum really showing up. So it seems like at every event, there's always one team that comes up and places themselves right there in the mix at the top. And it'll be curious to see if that continues. So overall, I think these were phenomenal games. I'd love to see the high point total in the end. It was amazing to see the Green Stego up there, a name that a lot of people are not familiar with, but they can be now.
Jayhawk let us know backstage the highest point total threshold to get into winner's bracket ever in the ALGS, and fitting for championships. Dia, you've had some great fits day 1 and day 2. Now I need to know day 3. Can you give us any hints? And if you don't want to talk about that, your final thoughts on today.
Day 3, day 3, day 4, I think are going to be a little more traditional, actually. I tried out some different styles.
Okay.
But talking about the game, I actually wanted to highlight some of our high performers because I was outspoken about Legacy yesterday when we were talking about Guild. I came in with really high hopes for the roster. Still very excited about Guild. But when we were looking at the kill leaders earlier, I wanted to point out something interesting. Since we've got Koifel and Sangjun up there, both LAN winners this year, the other person in the mix in those top 3 is Verhulst, who has not won a LAN this year. TSM, despite not having the crazy performance that Noctum has had, despite not putting up the insane numbers that we've already seen like Alliance and Fnatic do, essentially, I think are very strong contenders and have been very consistent on E-District throughout the entire tournament. So I'm really continuing to look forward to them, and I ask people, I mean, I'm sure people are looking at TSM, but if you're not because you're like, well, they don't have Hal anymore, I don't know what's going on, look at TSM again, because they're looking very, very strong, and they've only continued to get better throughout the year.
I agree with you, and that's a great point. I just wish they had done a little better when I picked them this round, because now I'm like way behind these guys. Come on, man. I'm trying to do my thing in these talent predictions. It's okay. We'll climb back. Reddit, we'll see where you're standing too. Are we racing each other? Are we together? Let's be in this to beat Graceful or Lauren like last time, okay? Let's be together with this. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. What a wonderful day in Sapporo. It was snowing in the morning. The action heated up tonight, and tomorrow is going to be even more exciting. But just in a few, we're going to do our POI draft to set up elimination bracket round 1 and our winners bracket. So don't go anywhere. But for those tuning out for the main broadcast, we'll see you tomorrow morning. ALGS Championships continue with day 3. Mañana.
Pressure? I mean, of course there's pressure, but he's going to show up. All he cares about is winning. It doesn't matter how bad it sounds or how brutal it is. That's what it takes. When you've accomplished what he's accomplished, anything less than first place is not good enough.
All the outside noise, the opinions, it doesn't faze him.
2022 saw a return to the international stage. And with it, the NA Giants were expected to reclaim the title of the best team in the world.
I didn't think any of the regions honestly knew what was going to happen until we got to Sweden.
When we were coming up, no one really believed in us. Nobody saw it coming.
Wide left flank, and the And just like that, Reignite is gonna do it. They are your champions. Australia comes all the way to Europe and wins. Dome Shield is placed, and now Dark Zero is going to be your champions of the Apex Legends Global Series. Back to back.
They're taking damage, but no! Here comes Zero! Zero! The captain! The IGL to send it back down under! Match point specialists!
2024, the dynasties have finally fallen.
And DC have this entire side to the circle to themselves.
They've actually got that. Zero goes down to Koiful.
It's up to them, but they take out Dark Zero. We are going on.
It's a massive moment for Apex. It's a huge moment for Apex North.
In response, Zero and Imperial Hal teamed up to form what many called the Super Team. But their attempt at stopping the bleeding fell short. The world had caught up.
But Team Falcons, a team that's slightly been struggling now.
It looks like Falcons will be eliminated, and indeed they are. Another dud game for them.
I mean, if you want to talk about momentum, there is a complete lack of inertia for the Super Team.
Zero's just gone down. Zero's gone down. Trying to do what he can, but Falcons' bad day continues. But SSG will become your champions here in Germany. The team that was dubbed the second Super Team when it came together.
Split 1, they narrowly lost. Split 2 was a complete collapse.
Another failure at Champs, and Year 4 may be the first in which Zero does not lift a trophy. The pressure is mounting.
I think he does feel pressure. I think he puts most of it on himself, though.
He feels pressure, but it doesn't really affect his performance. So.
I think the reason that he kind of seems like he doesn't feel it is because of how hard he works. Yeah, he's ruthless.
Everyone can say what they want, you know, everyone can think what they want, but at the end of the day, I know I'm going to be the one lifting that trophy. You'll see.
I am the king. I can bring nightmares to your dreams. You can't defeat me, but you can bring it. I'ma be right there on the scene, ready for action, ready for war. Attacking my option that can't say no more.
Oh, the trick shot, Oh my God, I'm clipping that.
Everywhere that you go, I be on your heels, I want out of smoke. A manifest this to reality, this not a fantasy, so that you know. A beast to a beast, we are family, and on the real, this is not a hoax. You never approach, I went on the post with my killers and foes. Burning the flames, they call me insane. Say it in vain, you know the name.
I got all of them.
Action, ready for war. Attacking my option that can't say no more. It is your choice, what you waiting for.
The first grabs the second, makes it a two-part, launches it.
Yuka, can he hit the Braver sword?
Surely it's going to be the moment for Apex North here. It's a massive moment for Apex. It's a huge moment for Apex North.
Hopefully where we go to Japan. For who knows what.
ALGS へようこそ日本札幌へ。
Snow is right. In Sapporo, the temperature, it's a little colder at night and in the morning. We've had some fun throwing snowballs, frolicking, chilling out, and in both senses of the words, and enjoying the atmosphere of what is an incredible place and an even more incredible and an iconic country in Japan. Now, as the dust settles and the snow falls, we relax, sit back, and look at what is ahead as the competition has just started to pick up the pace and give us an opportunity to start sending teams home and sending teams towards Championship Sunday. Welcome back to the ALGS POI Draft. This is a show we're going to be talking about what is going on with where these teams are picking, how they're going to be setting themselves up. We're beginning with the elimination round 1, and the draft is actually underway. I'm joined by Snipe Down, Dia, and Gaskin, and Envy has already taken their first pick in Lightning Rod. I want to give you guys a chance to kind of talk about the picks as they come, but before so, I do want to do a little preamble to allow you guys to see some picks, get some ideas going, and also let people watching at home know what to expect. In the next 2 phases, we have decided as an ALGS competitive community to actually, instead of the placement points that used to occur in our previous esport, which would give you advanced starting points, we now offer a selection of where you would like to start on the map. No more contests, no more random drops, no more switching it up. You are locked in to where you are landing. That has put an emphasis on qualifying and an emphasis on getting these picks to prioritize your way that you want to play. In elimination round 1, we'll begin with those teams that did not make it, that are facing 10 teams going home tomorrow, and of course we'll end with winners in about 30 minutes afterwards, but that is the point. First team will pick first, and then they will pick again first after all other teams have picked. We'll continue in that order until all maps are selected. Just to be aware, you can pick on any map at any time, so Storm Point, E-District, whatever you prioritize, and that's where this show comes in. We'll talk about those strategies. Fellas, we've seen about, 9, 10 picks now at this point. It's starting to get underway. Envy with the first Lightning Rod. Dia, what are you seeing?
I think it's very surprising that everybody, there we go, finally, somebody, Zero Tenacity, swaps on over to World's Edge, but I was very surprised to see so much emphasis on Storm Point from everyone, where typically we'll see at least somebody go for Climatizer, Thermal, something like that. Even now, Siphon being locked in, and surprisingly a Monument. I mean,
wow, there is a reason.
Monument is really catching me off
guard.
guard.
The reason is we move into the elimination bracket. We're going to see 8 games now, 8 matches, and I believe Storm Point's going to be the most played map that we can have out of the 3, so I think people are probably prioritizing for that reason. I'll get confirmation, but I'm fairly certain that's why we're seeing a lot of Storm Point as these first picks. But you see the usuals, you see Lightning Rod, you see the Mill coming up. They are some of the heavy hitters here on Storm Point.
If I recall correctly, for Elim round 1, I think they're playing 2 games of World's Edge, and so that's going to be like their least seen map.
Okay, well, I was completely wrong on the E-District main picks. And it seems like it's one of those where once a map starts getting picked that don't have as many strong POIs, then it seems like you kind of have to start going for that, or you're going to get left with the scraps, is kind of what it seemed like those first 6 teams were doing.
NRG grabbing Climatizer. And some of these teams with TBD, I believe that means they have passed their pick, and it will be coming back after the next team is given their pick. That's the opportunity there. And now a little bit of an adjustment. You see Shadow has found their pick, going to Trident, and Cedo Station for Dreamfire here. So again, still heavily Storm Point focused. This is obviously going to be tilting, and if that is correct, with the amount of games being played being higher on Storm Point, you're going to see that quite often. Really only a couple POIs from E-District picked already. It could be, though, that that's a newer map. It could be that, you know, when you're talking about where am I going to hedge my bet, am I going to place it on a map I know that I can pretty much consistently say when we get these POIs we've done well, or a newer map, it's kind of hard to prioritize E-District with less reps than World's Edge and Storm Point, admittedly.
Yeah, I'm really struggling with these TBD picks so far. I feel like this is one of those where the coach really needs to step up behind the scenes when their team is playing, because the players can't talk about POI drafts. The coach should have about 3 or 4 POIs on each of these maps to prevent this from happening.
It's just because we're switching between the maps. So basically, like as someone takes 15th pick, they might take it on World's Edge. And because of that, that means when we move over to, for example, E District, it will just show them as TBD because they haven't picked E District yet. So it's about their positioning overall, but they're picking between all 3 maps at once, and that's essentially what
it just keeps flipping back.
Yeah,
all right.
that's
All right, I was getting really thrown off there. I was like, that's a lot of TBD.
That's a lot of TBDs.
Some people are not prepped.
This coach is messing up.
Yeah. I still think the point is you should have about 3 POIs on each map that you feel relatively comfortable from, and if you don't get your main one, you want something relatively close to that POI so the rotations are similar to what you've practiced. And it does happen. If you do lose out on the time, it will say the TBD in your spot can just be given up to the next person. So having those and being prepared is massive when it comes to these POI drafts.
NV find a way to go again with their first pick, and it is a Blossom Drive pick. A versus D. They actually were in Neon Square for a 26th pick a little bit later. So now with the 21st pick and the first pick, they prioritize Blossom Drive. So a Storm Point and then a E District, leaving World's Edge to be their last choice as well. We'll follow along with NV Stallions also getting that second pick, a team that performed quite well. You would hope to see them set themselves up for success. Team Burger over in Skyhook West. I mean, there's a little bit of a conversation about leaving Skyhook East open, but a lot of times that ends up, how do you feel about that, Dan? The teams that end up not liking what they see and then they jump into Skyhook East at the end because it's open and they kind of split that.
It's a big enough POI that you can split it. I'd say, why does anyone get given it for free, right? It's not
true.
As bad as you might think, and the fight doesn't usually happen. People are going to be more than happy going over towards Trials, so I think there's enough, and it's a good place to be rotating from. We've seen a lot of success where people can find points from it as well, so I don't blame them for going on and down that route, to be completely honest.
I think it depends whether you're going up in weirdly against a survey camp main or not. Like, if somebody's top 3 POIs are survey camp and they're not just taking it because they have to, then moving out of Skyhook East, you're kind of at a disadvantage because the team that's more used to coming out of survey camp is likely going to take advantage of the whole train track rotation before you are, which just leaves you with half a POI, and Sky West that is just stronger than you. And
I also feel like when it comes to region-based, like NA gives up certain POIs because they know people will always like want that. But when it comes to having all these other regions involved, it makes it a lot more difficult getting those comfort picks because you don't necessarily know. And I think the international scrims are going to play a big part into that. But when you are set groups, international scrims, and then you're thrown into the elimination bracket, all that prep kind of goes out the window.
It's also interesting to point out a lot of these teams in the elimination bracket haven't had the best of days, but sometimes that's because they're competing in groups where the top teams with top seeds are getting the premier drop spot. So essentially, if you're in a group with Alliance or Fnatic and they're taking, Skyhook West, or they're taking a spot that they're prioritizing, this is that opportunity, Dia, for an elimination round 1 team to finally flex that position. But I kind of throw that back and say, if you're going to make it to winners, you're probably going to still have the same problem where, these higher seeded teams are going to be taking those POIs. So at this point, do you just try to figure out a strategy that it works for maybe a less prioritized POI and just keep developing that? Or
I think you still got to go with what's your strongest, even if you know that that's going to be taken away from you in winners, because the further you make it into the tournament, while everybody's going for the win, the further you make it into the tournament is still a much further win monetarily and, of course, professionally. So I do think that you're sticking with what makes you strong. I'm glad to see Dreamfire finally pick up Street Market. That was a really lagging pick that I was expecting to be grabbed a lot earlier, given how heavily Fnatic prioritized it and what they did with it.
Quite serious up here, isn't it?
It is.
I just thought that for a second. The music in my ears. I've not been on the desk yet.
We're not having fun.
It's very tense.
This is tense. This is.
It's also going faster
a little
than
emotional.
it did last time.
It is going
the
fast.
Players are. I think they're used to it. I think Snipe's right. Like, everyone knows now what kind of POIs they should be going for. There is a little bit of deliberation between, are you going to go for E District? Are you going to go for World's Edge, etc. But for the most part, people have kind of knuckled down, and that's the amount of scrims that we saw played leading up to this tournament, right? There was an excessive amount of scrims, which is brilliant, and a lot of POI drafts were done before we had the official POI draft. That's why we had a wealth of numbers and statistics of who was picking what and going with whatever, and I think that's why everyone really knows where they're going to be heading.
Yeah. Interesting enough, we have kind of the map clarification for what you can expect tomorrow. So maps 1 through 3 will be E District, 4 and 5 will be Storm Point, and then 6 through 8 will be World's Edge. So it's kind of the opposite of what we were discussing. So that heavy Storm Point prioritization, are we making sense of that?
I'm not making sense
for
of
elimination bracket?
Yeah.
I'm not making sense of that then.
No, I don't
understand
that
the
makes
prio
zero
on
sense.
Stormpoint if the other two maps are both played more than Stormpoint.
Are we sure that's not the winner's bracket?
I'm not sure.
I'll shoot the messenger.
I'm not sure that I'm not sure.
I'll shoot the messenger first, but we'll see.
We'll see.
That sounds like winner's bracket, but I will hold my hands up and say I might be wrong as well. It wouldn't make much sense, but at the same time, okay, no, actually, we won't even hypothesize. We'll find out for sure first. As we move over to Supernova,
we'll get some confirmation on that. Dan, wow. Dan really got pissed off on broadcast. I mean, did you guys see that? That's what we have to deal with in the green room.
I'm used to being like.
He put his hands up. He said, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's duke him out. Fisticuffs.
It's a lot easier over there. I can hide. Now I'm on camera all the time.
That's right.
Actually, I'm not even meant to be here. I'm just going to point that out. First, it was
Thanks for hanging
else.
with it.
Then Onset got asked, and he said no, and then stuck with me now. So here we are.
Man. Well, I'm always happy, man. It's fine. We we get a chance to have a little Gaskin on our desk. It's always a pleasure. Dia as well, you guys have been casting so well this tournament. Now VK Gaming kind of giving us the rundown of Old Town, E-District again being prioritized. We did see that early Stormpoint. It's switching now to E-District. We've seen probably less World's Edge than any of those maps as well. Still a lot of priority spots, not necessarily priority spots, but familiar spots in trees still open as well, and staging. A couple of spots that have not been taken, but obviously not prioritized. 45th pick, Source X and Y coming up.
Well, made me laugh last time we did the POI draft at this point. Wig was like, yeah, they wouldn't have really wanted that. No, they wouldn't have really wanted that either, just because we're like, yeah, we're getting to 50th onward, of course at that point. But you pick up the dregs, and I think one thing we've learned in POI draft is the E-District in general, every POI is pretty good. The loot is very fair across the board. There are a few that are a statistical anomaly, and there are some that perform better with their rotations. But World's Edge, when you get to the dregs, there is some awful POI. So people are like, I really don't want to have to pick this. We'll save that for later if he's going to be our latter picks.
Yeah.
I can't believe Disguised are getting Geyser over Survey Camp. I don't know. I don't think Survey Camp, Epicenter, I don't think it's that bad. Am I crazy, Snipe?
Nah, Survey Epi's not bad, but at the same time, like, if you're worried about another region maybe taking one of those spots, then it becomes bad. If you get both, it's one of the best POIs in the game, but risking that when you're not sure about what other... That's kind of what I was saying, where in North America, you can predict and you can grab one, and other teams aren't going to want to do it.
Yeah.
But when you have all these other regions, it's like, you can't predict people you don't really play against. Maybe they really want that or think it's solid, and you get stuck with just Survey. You're struggling to get out.
Yeah, I mean, rotations as well, and team personalities have a little bit to do with this, because we do not know all of those intricacies the same way that players do. They might say this team rotates so fast, they are always a problem, a pain in our behinds when they are behind us. So I do not want this POI, which just may technically be better, because I know who is surrounding us and how they rotate. They're either going to delay us big time because they take a long time, or they might just rush us, and we like to take our time, and we don't want to be fighting until end zone. And guess what? We got some confirmation that it is correct. It will be 1-3 on E-District, 4-5 Stormpoint, and then we will finish off 6-8 on World's Edge.
All right, so now we can hypothesize, right? We can try and work out why that would be the decision. So if you're only playing a map twice, maybe you feel like those are the most... No, I can't work it out. It makes
Can't work it out.
It makes no sense.
You actually get less points for getting a good spot. It might be that E-District just isn't that worth it to them.
Like
and they're like, well,
E-District
World's Edge
I can
flexible.
understand because, like, in general, the POIs seem to be pretty fair, but then why wouldn't you just go for World's Edge if you're playing it 3 times over 2?
Yeah, that is a good question.
Maybe they don't know.
They might not know as well.
At that point,
I mean,
they gotta know. They gotta know.
Did they come off of World's Edge? Were they fighting Stormpoint this last game? I think it was. Maybe just an unknown, unthought about bias of having played that map just recently and knowing what went well and what didn't.
I would definitely believe, like recency.
Like they were primed by playing it 2 games in a row right before the draft and having a very clear idea of why they liked where they were or why they didn't like where they were. These are the teams drafting that have probably just played a little bit. A lot of them ended up in elimination round 1. The other thing, too, is, do you try to avoid a mess instead of create this great opportunity, guys? I mean, that's the other thing. Sometimes teams have said, we are pretty okay on these other maps. we're terrible on Storm Point. So I want to get the best POI possible on Storm Point. That way I can give myself a chance to not get goose eggs, because I know I'll be no matter where I am on E-District or World's Edge, I'm not really worried about those.
I think when it comes to the map format, I would have just picked the maps you play the most, focus on those, get your best picks, and then just said, kind of screw it to the map that you only play twice, and just kind of hope for the best that you manage to get the points needed, but you prio the maps that you play the most. And I'm still I'm watching some of these picks. Checkpoint went 8th to last, and it used to be considered one of the higher end POIs, so I don't know what happened there. And then we still had Mirage and Staging open on World's Edge. I'm surprised not one of these teams has tried to lock one of those down to scare other teams off. I get it. I know I said that whole Survey Epi thing, but at this point, you get Mirage and Survey. That's a lot of loot. The rotations are open. You don't have any teams in front of you, and that one as well becomes one of the best POIs.
Regionally, too. I mean, you know, we're not necessarily talking about that, but the game does change per region, certain, you know, prioritizations. We've got Dragons, JHS, Professional, and Supernova, you know, coming from casting a lot of APAC, a lot of North America and EMEA, might be different over in APAC as well. And so we have to give a little bit of credit to different priorities per regions, just like EMEA sometimes loves a meta that North America isn't playing. I think we're seeing that kind of pan out now.
Can I just say, as a team that hasn't done super hot, I think Luminosity is actually doing very well in this draft so far. Yeah, they picked up Harvester, and they got Pylon on Storm Point, and they ended up going Viaduct on E-District, which is like not great, but also not. I mean, it's not terrible, and if you're getting Pylon and Harvester, those are pretty strong zone POIs. I really like Luminosity's spot, given where they are in the draft. Like, given that they're pretty low down, I think they did really well.
They do need kind of a shock to the system, though, as well. I mean, I don't know if it's a POI draft problem. We can go back again, you know, outside of the stand. Luminosity, even if they get their right spots, something's got to change for them to figure out the momentum shift to really make it out of round one, because there's no more chances tomorrow.
Just need to play better. Yeah, it's as simple as that, really. I think that they know that they can play better, and sometimes you need that elimination bracket just to give you some extra reps to play a situation where, you know, you might have been struggling. And I think that one thing we can take away from this POI, and regardless of the Storm Point nonsense, right, is there was a real honest situation where a lot of these teams struggled in the previous bracket.
Yeah.
And maybe they were feeling like, okay, we didn't do well on Storm Point.
Right.
Let's prioritize Storm Point as our pick, because it's been bad for us. But we were picking up points on E-Dish and World's Edge, for example.
I think that's realistic. I think Nasky, who joined us, said something about that in his own strategy of why he prioritized some of the picks. And if you look on your screen, these are those final picks where all of these teams ended. I'll give everyone on desk kind of a chance to digest this. But general thoughts and I think overall expectations, because we see Team Burger over in Skyhook West. They end up having to share that Skyhook East location with Ninjas in Pajamas, and you know that's a team that doesn't mind fighting early. And so ironically, you know, a team that is you know, hoping to get that great POI, we see why not. But this is, of course, World's Edge, which was probably the least prioritized map so far outside of E-District. But Storm Point, this is where most of those early picks went, guys. How's it looking?
I think one of the more confusing things was the disguised down beast pick as aggressively as they went for it. That went in one of the first like 7 or 8 picks, and I'd be curious to know what that is averaged on the scale of how much that's proud, because down beast is widely considered not one of the best POIs. I've played from there. It's tough, but maybe that's just one of those comfort picks that we talked about. So
especially you consider Disguised went for Sito Station in their original draft for the POIs when we looked at everything in group stages, and yeah, maybe there's just a feeling they have about Down Beast where they're just like, all right, the zones were transitioning to the west, so we're going to go for Down Beast. You've got to understand a lot of it does come down to superstition as well. I know there's a lot of analytics and statistics, but sometimes people are just feeling a certain area of the map.
And I mean, that's the conversation with the coach. Guys, I don't know. We just got to shift it up. I've been watching us. I know what we need to do. We need to play this way. And Disguise could have that conversation going on. That's why when we do these, I always want you could never do it because they don't want to give away the reason before playing. But I just want to know what they're thinking. We want to have that conversation with them. So, Dia, I'll leave it to you. This was a map that a lot of teams felt comfortable going with their 20 to 40 picks on. I think almost all of these picks here were within 20 to 45. Obviously, E-District, maybe just a comfortable map, and not really much else to it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are definitely POIs that I am not super happy to see picked for the teams that got them, and I'm sorry to say it, but I do like Galleria myself. I don't love Galleria for comp, and unfortunately, I think it was NRG ended up having to go for that. Shadow 3690 ended up going Neon Square as well, and I do feel like those two teams got shortchanged a bit, but that's all right.
Well, obviously, we have another POI draft to get done, but that has been your elimination round 1. Winners about to start. Dan, thank you, man. You're released. You are dismissed.
Okay, good.
My friend.
Somewhere there's Onset trying to tie his shoelaces or something. I should probably go help.
Give him a hard time
Great
for
to be
us.
up here. Peace out. Let's go. See you later.
Peace out. Thanks, man. And we are not going to be alone for too long, although I will miss Dan. And, yeah, he didn't want to go. That almost kept him here. But we're introducing back the man, the myth, the legend himself, Jayhawk, to join us for our winners round. And I didn't want to tell Dan this, but, you know, that's more important. So
I mean,
wanted you for the best.
I might not be as handsome as he is, but I am taller. So, I mean, there's something there.
I mean, it's attractive points either way. I mean, you know. So we have got our next maps in 1 to 3 being Storm Point for this. And then we've got 4 and 5 being World's Edge. And then 6 to 8 are E-District for this. So it's the kind of opposite, but of course you will still see a prioritization dependent on how these teams want to play it. And this is winners. These teams all are consistently getting priority placements for each of the groups that they've been in throughout this week. We'll see how that changes now that they're all in a group together, Snipe.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like once again we're seeing a bit of a prio on Stormpoint here, which, I mean, a little more of a reason to do it this time around. But it kind of threw me off. I really did think E-District was going to be the one prioritized, but once again, once a map is selected and everyone starts picking there, you're kind of forced to grab something until there's nothing left, and then you just take that pick to get the best POI at one of the other maps.
Anyone else think it's weird that Falcons went Cenote when Mill was open?
That is a little strange.
Very weird. They do like a lot of Mill. That's true.
But maybe this is them kind of evolving here. Maybe this is them wanting to be a little more aggressive, be a little slower rotating. Because with Mill previously with Zero, it was always the turbo rotate, get to zone immediately. I did want to add on to the Stormpoint thing too as well. I've talked to a lot of pros at this lane, and they do feel like with Stormpoint, if you don't get one of those POIs that either has really good rotations or a Trident with the Gibby dome thing you can do to rotate into some really tough spots, they feel like Stormpoint has become incredibly hard in the current meta. And so I'm not surprised that some of these teams are heavily prioing the Tridents on Stormpoint.
I've seen a lot more Trident gameplay when it comes to those Gibby bubble pushes, and that's a unique thing. Whether you can add that onto the list of cover that you can use in a lot of these situations. I've seen nonstop Tridents. You have to shoot under it, and that is a very good point. Tridents it's the only map that has that type of mobility to get around, so Stormpoint gets more congested quickly.
It's got its own little mini game there, so that's a big part of the competitive nature. We're going to see that prioritize itself. It also may be one of the reasons why, just even with those only 2 maps, we're seeing it be that much more of a difference maker in getting points, getting positions, or having flexibility. Why Stormpoint, even if it's only 2 maps played, they're going to go for it because those Tridents have really, really synergized well with Gibby, and it continues to be something that we see game in and game out.
Especially with there's no Bangalore in the meta now.
That's
and
right.
With Stormpoint, we've always known a lot of open space.
Yeah.
No bang to have the smoke to give you time. So now you're having to burn your Gibby bubble, your Newcastle wall, which you don't want to do.
Right.
So having that trying to get out of those spaces is really important.
It's cover, mobile cover as well, you got to say. A lot of in-game spots may be playable with Rampart, a Trident, and a Newcastle wall, but without that Trident, maybe not enough space. Again, we continue to see these picks fly by and continue on from World's Edge to Stormpoint.
Not to detract from World's Edge and Stormpoint, but I was really excited to see Crazy Raccoon pick. Jayhawk, you and I were talking about this backstage because they've shown inordinate priority towards Lotus throughout the last couple, throughout all of the group stage. They were third picking Lotus every single time. It was the first pick that they had sniped on. They were the only team that was prioritizing E-District so heavily.
Wow.
And they just swapped up to Electrodam. They've been playing Lotus the whole group stage. They've made it up to winners, and they're going Electro down.
Lotus actually got picked before them, I believe, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit surprising because I didn't expect that to happen. But also, to further that point,
It was Furia right there.
yeah,
Yeah.
45% of Crazy Raccoon's points on the tournament so far have come from Lotus on E-District. This has by far been their best map. The other two maps are both sitting about 25% each, and so they've been incredibly reliant on E-District, and I do wonder, like, EDAM is fantastic. I think it's probably the best POI on that map if you want to play slow and rotate a little bit later than some of these other teams, but can they adjust since
That
they
hasn't
don't have
been
the
their style.
comfort pick? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I said though before, where if you don't get your comfort pick, you take the next closest POI as long as it has good enough loot. Your rotations are almost exactly the same. It gives you, a lot of these zones have been ending in that southeast corner of the map on E-District specifically, so it kind of pushes them even a little closer to that region. And I think it was just overall, it was we lost our spot, get it ASAP before we lose that whole region of the north side. And if that happened, then good luck.
That's a great point. I mean, just try to mirror a little bit of what you're used to so you stay comfortable. And going south to north, I mean, that is a big shift up if you're used to always traveling north to south, and you just get familiar with the way those routes go. Good points there is we get a spot of Shop, Pivfi, Rebellion, Big Don sitting in the middle of MT and Koiful talking about what they want to do. These conversations, again, wish I was a fly on the wall. Any lip readers?
Shopify just took Resort, I believe.
Yeah.
There.
Taking Resort.
Yeah, they took Resort.
So we see about 8, 9 POIs taken so far out of 26 from E-District. Way more of a priority there earlier on than we saw with Storm Point as well. Still a lot of E-District left to be picked up. A lot of Storm Point as well. And a lot of World's Edge, which seems to be the theme. You've continued to watch these teams kind of shift their perspective. And also, for those watching, definitely a different rhythm when it comes to winners versus elimination. It feels like there is a bit of a different priority to E-District, maybe being the new map, knowing that this could be something that separates them, especially with teams consistently knowing we've performed across Storm Point and World's Edge. I mean, that's why we're here in winners. We feel pretty good about that as Dia celebrates.
Yeah, I was looking at what was left unpicked, and I was like, you know what, Cloud9 should take energy back, and they took it, and I'm like, all right, let's go. So I'm just feeling excited that I get the little validation of seeing something and going, this would be really good for this team, and having them also go, this would be really good for us. Yeah. All
right, C9 coach coming up. Here's a look at World's Edge. Yeah, looking a little barren so far. Only 5 picks.
This is the map that's in the middle, right? Only 2 games
This
played here?
is the map that's in the middle. Only 2 games played here, so this makes a lot more sense. Kind of what we would have expected to see on Storm Point. But now we're actually seeing that play out the way it is intended to be playing, at least from a logical perspective looking up here. I think that this is also, again, maybe just bleeding into we have confidence across all these maps, so let's just prioritize the ones we're playing more.
Yeah, Snipe, I have a question for you, because obviously it's the map that's only being played twice. Alliance goes first pick, and they go World's Edge. Do you feel like, as a competitor, that puts them... Obviously, they have the North Pad Trident thing, so they can kind of save Storm Point. But do you think that, in your experience, having competed for so long, that they should have maybe gone E-District first because of the extra game that's going to be played there? Or do you think that they just pick their strengths?
I mean, they have to be picking their strengths because, like you said, I just think E-District and going for the maps that have 3 maps in the set is the right thing to do. But if they're comfortable with it, and it's also one of those things where if maybe you can't, like the POIs that you wanted to pick on either Storm Point or E-District aren't there, then you're kind of like deferring and just choosing to get as good as possible on a World's Edge.
I feel like that makes sense a lot too. I mean, looking outside in, you have not had enough time on E-District to have all the terrible POIs in big-time situations and know what to do with them.
Yeah.
You have definitely had some bad POIs on World's Edge or Storm Point. You've had experiences saying, all right, I mean, this sucks, but we know what this looks like. I don't know if you have a lot of we know what this looks like on E-District with a POI that is just absolutely not what you want. And I think that that is truly a little bit more where the confidence, the mentality is for them, at least from what I would imagine, Jayhawk.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I do want to point out one thing real fast. Crazy Raccoon just took Lava Siphon, And the reason this is interesting to me is I've been pointing it out throughout the tournament. So far, they've been incredibly kill point heavy. They finally got their win, but before that, they only had 2 games in the top 5 the whole time.
Yeah.
Lava Siphon is one of those POIs that's a little more known for being able to rotate quickly, get into a really good position.
Yeah.
And so I think this is maybe where we're starting to see Crazy Raccoon bring back some of those old strats that we saw them win with in Los Angeles, where, okay, we know we can kill everybody, but maybe we should start getting some placement too.
And killing everybody here could have also just been, we feel confident in being able to risk it a little bit, show a different side to us, just get through group stages, get into winners, and now we'll start playing the game that we know is going to win a match point final, because that ultimately is the decisive factor, Dia, heading into these next days.
Yeah, I mean, it could very much be, like a shift in play style that is, now that we've gotten group stage out of the way, let's start to prepare for what winners is going to look like, what match point is going to look like when people are a little more conservative, and we're preparing to do that too. I think that they've actually picked pretty well, all things considered, although I am noticing they still have Storm Point left to go. I don't think Stormcatcher would be that bad for Crazy Raccoon if they want to try and go into the next round.
Looking at these things still available, go ahead,
I was just trying to
Countdown,
think, yeah,
Landslide, we've got Overlook, Staging still here. Obviously, Epicenter. Geyser not picked up too early. Again, a lot of World's Edge. I think we're going to see that, guys. And just continuing to say, what can we get on E-District? What can we get on Storm Point? There's Coastal Camp. There's Jurassic on Storm Point still available. And then it's going to start saying, well, we're just going to use the rest of our picks to get whatever's available on World's Edge. Clearly the least prioritized map in this draft.
Curious about the whole with E-District being the way it is, there's so much area that you can play with defensive legends that I do also feel like, because of the lack of experience on this map, just getting to loot up and being able to just get in and find spots almost at any point on that map due to the buildings, the space, the amount of structures and things, could be something that people have thought about. And I also think the Valkyrie pick is still a very viable pick, especially if you're stuck playing a really bad POI on E-District. Maybe that's something that some of these teams did. They say they're not going to get a good POI. They focus on other areas or other maps that they can get a good one. They just say, might play Edge, play a character like Valk, and just find a spot with the passive.
It's a good way to think about it. I mean, you have to consider all those options as a coach, Jayhawk.
Yeah, and on that, only 5 teams in this lobby are actually having E-District as their best map so far.
Yeah.
So I really do think there's actually a lot of room for innovation. I don't think the map has been solved by any means. We've only been scrimming on it for, what, 4 or 5 months at this point, so there's still so much that teams have to learn. And I do wonder, does like an off-meta Valk type of pick, does that change things for teams? I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, too, do you say this is what we have, and let's now focus, like you mentioned, just on the gameplay aspect of it. Let's not really try to prioritize getting a pick that's going to set us up for success. Let's take a bad pick, and let's try to put a good plan together for that bad pick and accept that and really do well on these maps that we know can push us ahead. Alliance, one of the only teams opting for Skyhook West, a World's Edge pick. You see the next World's Edge pick coming almost 16, 11, 12, 16, and it jumps all the way up to 29, then 42 essentially. Green Stego, I missed there at 20, but a lot of these teams not feeling that way. Alliance maybe just saying, we need to get off to the start. If we don't get off to a good start at E-District, we know we're going to have our bread and butter on a map that we can get a lot of points and set ourselves up for success.
It doesn't look like anyone wants to be around Alliance. The whole area is just completely void right now.
Also a power play there. A team like that, do you want to do it? Cloud9 go right underneath them?
They don't like that pick. I know they don't like that pick. They wanted they wanted Overlook. They've been landing Overlook nonstop, and being forced to the other side of the map in this bracket is going to be a bit of a switch up, and I'm sure Sauce can handle it, and they're going to do their work. But
I think C9 could have gone Fisher. I mean, I think I like it slightly better than Countdown.
I agree with that too. I don't think Countdown's great anymore.
But C9 does like to rotate really fast, and so Countdown's a little closer to the center. Maybe that's the thought, but you also don't have the balloon, so I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, especially if I feel like Countdown also has a lot more, I say a lot more, not many more, but a decent amount more zones that are going to at least encompass it in the first couple of rounds, whereas like Fisher, you're probably starting on the edge. Almost nothing's going Fisher.
6 more picks to go. Crazy Raccoon, actually 7 on their 54th pick here. And they're going to take Coastal Camp.
I just realized we have an Enter Force 36 and 100 Thieves Trident Northpad thing going on there. Both of those teams have been actually pretty terrible on Storm Point throughout the entire tournament. So I do wonder, especially with 100 Thieves, the one thing that I know about Timmy and Designful in the past is that the thing that gets them going, that builds that momentum, is a good fight immediately off drop. And so I gotta wonder, is that them saying, we're gonna come challenge you immediately for all that loot, we're gonna kill you, and then that propels them forward?
You know what else is true about that is that back before we even had like the POI draft that dropped everybody in.
Yeah.
It was Timmy and Design that were constantly harassing Furia, who were landing over at Wall, where they would try and land in the little room at the bottom. So, I mean, this could turn into an E36 thing very easily. It could also turn into a 100 Thieves Furia thing very easily.
I mean, last year at Champs, they ratted Hal inside the wall, off drop immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. So that top half of the map is going to get really chaotic in winners.
Interestingly enough, for those curious about the stats, they've been flying over our picture on the bottom right. In the top right, you can see the team, you can see the POI they picked, you can see their latest place from their POI. In this case, haven't played there yet. You can also see the average points it has on map. Look at complexity here on staging, which they've selected. 35 was the latest place they had from that POI. Also, the average points on the map, 15.62. So not amazing, obviously, but staging still having a chance. Team's best POI on the map has been Harvester. So you can continue to see, even making winners bracket, you're going to have to make some adjustments. That seeding does shift tremendously the later you get going, and World's Edge not necessarily prioritized for many of these teams. So far, there is 59 picks done. We've got one more. It's Green Stego, Canal Plaza on E-District to wrap up our winners draft. That is going to set up an amazing Saturday morning and afternoon. Guys, winners done. What are our thoughts? Who won? Fnatic, obviously. Alliance. Saw Shopify Rebellion. Knocked them. They had some of those earlier picks. How do we think they did?
I think Shopify got pretty unlucky on the World's Edge. They got forced at Mirage, and they have teams around them at Lava Fissure, staging everywhere. And I've landed there before in Pro League, and even if you rotate as fast as possible, you're surrounded. You got landslide, countdown, lava. I mean, every single team around you. So, I mean, no problem with them fighting their way out, I'm sure, but it makes it a little more difficult having a high pick and still getting stuck like that.
Yeah. Let's take a look at our World's Edge.
Shopify has been pretty bad, by the way, on World's Edge. That's actually their worst map, so maybe this is just them kind of saying, like, hands up, we're just going to get all our points from the other.
Yeah, that's true. I think, did they go Storm Point first, Shopify?
I believe so.
I think a lot of people went Storm Point first.
Yeah. And obviously here on World's Edge, Alliance, yes, Alliance getting it, but it's not showing E-District names on World's Edge POI, so we'll get that corrected for you guys, or we'll just move past this graphic to E-District if we want to do that as well. That could help. But one of the things that obviously you got to say, you don't really know if this is going to pan out yet. I think a lot of these teams are having similar conversations to us, in that, hey, here's what we think, here's what we're dealing with. Let's make the best of it. Dia, there's no right answer at this point, especially if you're not able to pick first. But even if you're picking first, you're still deciding, all right, do I want to go with a great map and get a great pick? Do I want to go with a bad map, get a great pick? You're still making decisions that do not give you everything you want regardless. That's kind of the fun of it.
Yeah. I mean, I know that a lot of our teams likely are going to have to guerrilla some game plans tonight.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the situation. I'm actually thinking specifically about Virtus Pro. I was watching them pick Epicenter, and I was like, oh, that feels so terrible when they're surrounded by everyone. But with Aurora right next to them, Fnatic, TSM, Virtus Pro, I think really got dealt a really rough hand, at least on World's Edge. On Storm Point, things are looking a little bit better for them. And I'd actually say that on Storm Point, I feel the best about where everyone's POIs match up with how they like to play the game. I think we got pretty good stylistic matches across the board on Storm Point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good draft. It's kind of like a compromise. No one really feels good at the end of it. Like, you kind of had to give up enough, and you got enough to where you just move on, because that's the true element of it. No one's winning here, but obviously now that means the real plans have to start coming together. As you mentioned, guerrillaing something, putting, what is it called? Gorilla gluing something together and trying to hope that it sticks, Jayhawk, tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're saying not a lot of people are coming out super happy, but I do want to talk about one team, and I did actually just mention them. 100 Thieves got Thermal Station. We know Designful has the deeds to that land.
Yeah.
And then they're the only team, like I've already said, they're the only team in the world I think truly wants a contest. Obviously, you don't
Wait,
want
hold
it.
on. We got Zach Baser in here.
I mean, a lot of
We got
teams do like
Nasky in
a lot
here.
of teams
I mean,
do like
come
to
on
fight,
now.
but I don't think anybody gets as energized as Designful does after killing a team immediately off rip. You get all their loot, and it gets the juices flowing for him.
Yeah.
And so I do think that 100 Thieves is coming out very happy. Also, another team I want to point out, Guild. They have, and this is true of Phony's entire career, are a very World's Edge dependent team. They only get 2 games on that map, and they got Landslide, which is good for fast rotating, but at the same time, not really a powerhouse POI that we normally think of.
It reminds me of when Phony was playing on W. They would always land with Landslide because they couldn't contest anybody, and actually it worked out pretty well. But I do agree. I don't think it's a fantastic place for them to be playing, especially with this iteration of the Phony roster.
And here we go with our Storm Point maps. And you can see Fnatic, really one of our first picks as well. We haven't talked a lot about them. Getting Boardwalk on E-District, getting Lightning Rod on Storm Point. Question we had was Cenote K for Falcons when Mill was open and available for them, but discussing the Trident, having an impact in that rotationally, but also in this Gibby Newcastle meta. And Green Stego grabbing Stormcatcher at the very end. Virtus Pro with Command Center. A little highlights for those as we move on over to E-District. TSM, a team we've been looking at. They kind of had a slow day in this last series, but they're still here. 51st pick went to Old Town. And Fnatic finishing off with Boardwalk. Noctum was able to get theirs. And I think Aurora, a team, too, that we've been looking at today in Neon Square.
Complexity got their pick. They picked that spot a lot at Viaduct in group stages. They chose that, and I think EXO got a really good spot here as well for them.
Well, an amazing, amazing showcase of what it takes to be successful at the ALGS, especially at the championships. Long days, late nights, and still having to put together the brain power to come up with a plan, even when you don't even know what that plan is. These teams have set themselves up for success and a great story to be continued. Where will the tale go? You'll have to stick with us to find out. We're excited to be along the ride for you. Day 2 has wrapped up. We've got our winners and our elimination bracket round 1 ready to go. Tomorrow, we will send 10 teams again to Saturday, and we will send 10 teams home. The drama continues here at the ALGS Championships in Sapporo. We thank you for being here, and remember to come early tomorrow morning for a day you will not forget. Good night.
Stages. You go from losers bracket to winners bracket so quickly. Sometimes at the end of that struggle you find the light. Sometimes you just gotta pull the light out of you.
When the victory's on the line, you can't. If I win it, you know it's mine. Don't try to. I'm eating that crunch time. You never. You can't. You can't. When the victory's on the line, you can't. If I win it, you know it's mine. Don't try to.
Would Alienware tear 100 Thieves apart? And it is very risky for Shopify Rebellion as Furia have had enough. Team zipping up on them. We've seen this before. Shopify Rebellion tried it once. Can you succeed where they failed?
What is
Furia
happening? It's
are
9
getting cooked
people.
alive.
Shotgun fighting.
This game, this was crazy stylish. 100 Thieves into the outside. It's Shadow who come in on the zip line, and Shadow who from the bottom of the leaderboard takes the victory in game number 3.
You can't.